high five.
Packers jumping around, they rush 4. Plenty of time for John, now squeezes, steps up in the pocket. LA can run, inside the 10, head first, he fires off the 5-yard line.
Manning out of the gun. Manning lets it fly. It's caught by Thomas. There's the record for Payton Manning.
Rushing 4, ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground and still on the ground. Picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line.
And here we go. First snap of the overtime. The Broncos have been in 3 overtime games this year. They won them all. Got him at the 40. It's Thomas at the 50. Stiff arm got him 3 to the 30. To the 20. Thomas to the 10. Denver's going on to New England. They win it on the first one.
And welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Mundungus Creevy, joined by my co-host Glenn Hauser, Mr. Boggins, and Richie. We are a fan-led Broncos-based podcast bringing you all sorts of Broncos-related craziness. Now, you are currently listening to the MHRT Podcast, which airs every Tuesday at 7654, as Rich adjusts his camera, on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. And also make sure that you tune into our other podcast, the Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue podcast, that airs every Thursday at 7654 on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Now, we are going to have a few off-season changes and additions. First, we will have Broncos Breakdown with Bronco Bill posted every Wednesday on the network, so make sure you look into that. And also, right after the Super Bowl, the week starting after the Super Bowl. Don't know what day yet, but we're going to have a new show called Rough Draft, and that's where Isaiah breaks down potential draft picks and potential free agent pickups. So make sure you're watching your feeds for that information. How's everybody doing?
Doing great.
That great?
Doing great. My plane has not left yet, which is good. So
that's awesome.
That was crazy. And like my first question is, you really think Nathaniel Hackett's flying commercial? Like it's really?
It was a private.
No, it was a private jet.
Well, either way, why was he not picked up by the Broncos private jet? Or was he?
Well, he was flying the Millennium Falcon, I think, based on his Star Wars.
I don't think he was.
I thought it was. Was that not our private jet? I know it was a private jet.
I don't know. I mean, I would assume that if you're wanting him to be the coach of the team, or potentially, you would go like pick him up in the Broncos jet and bring him to Denver.
Yeah, I mean, based on the Clist pictures and video, it seemed like he was arriving in a private jet.
Unless you're the Giants, and then you'd make him fly coach.
True. Fair enough.
So, that was probably the best weekend of playoff football I have ever seen in my life. That was fantastic. Every single game was either a game-ending field goal or overtime.
It was unbelievable. I mean, it was one game better than the next. You know, the only downside was that Buffalo couldn't finish off the Chiefs. But I will say that everyone complaining about there you go. They were that jet is Mile High Profits plane, by the way. I do find it interesting when I've seen some of the Broncos fans, and there haven't been many, but they've said, you know, we need to change the playoff layout. They how quickly they forget that Tebow to Demaryius Thomas was a walk-off touchdown in overtime.
Mm-hmm.
So we have benefited. Yeah. We were the very first beneficiary of that. So that's
true. That's absolutely true.
Yeah, we don't want anybody else to be a beneficiary of it. So that's why we need to change it.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true. And I learned that there was another side of the ball with the Tyreek Hill peace sign.
Yep.
Like I mean, I looked at that and I was like, so that's not a flag, because I feel like every other time that's a flag, but now that it's Tyreek Hill on playoff weekend, it's not a flag.
Well, and taunting looks like their thing this year, right? Like
right.
That's what they were focusing on, taunting.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like at least be consistent.
When Mike was doing the introductions, I did a peace sign, and then I was just so ashamed of myself. You know, like
you should be.
I pulled a Tyreek, and we both received the same penalty for doing so.
Just
flag on the play, sir.
Poor role models
that's
for the
taunting.
kids.
Ooh,
Flag on the play.
the power.
Such poor role models for the kids, the two of you. I mean,
But no, like
a peace sign. I mean, come on now.
that game was so fantastic. Like you wanted more football. Like you wanted Josh Allen to have another shot to tie it up. And I don't know whether it needs to go to college rules or like a mix in between. But they're definitely. I believe every team should at least have one shot in overtime apiece, and then we can go sudden death from there.
What do they say? Tails equals fails. Like what was Allen thinking? Screaming tails.
Hold on, I got a comment here. Get out of here.
Profits.
Get out of here. The 10 minutes one.
Yeah, that would have been that, especially in your garb, the prophet robe.
Oh, that would have been sweet.
Oh my gosh, you'd be standing there in the snow, you know.
You need to get like some merch that you can like throw, and be like be like, "You've been prophesized," and like throw it at him.
He says that with that
he
voice.
Definitely would want to come to Denver after that. Oh man. So then there's, and again, it has nothing to do with the Broncos, but the whole Brittany, like Mahomes' girlfriend, fiance thing, like pouring champagne over the thing. And I guess there was this whole thing where the fans were like, yes, please dump champagne on us. But I can promise you that not 100% of them were like, yes, please spray me with champagne. Like, she even went on Twitter and was asking why she can't just do what she wants and be left alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just wish that I think the Chiefs fans just wish that they could do what we do with Johnny Bolin and just pretend he doesn't exist. You know, that'd be great.
Yeah, but there's also Jackson. You got to ignore him too, and he's worse.
Yeah, it's true. You just ignore
those two are like two peas in a pod. They're
yeah.
I mean, they're killing his image for crying out loud.
It is weird. Yeah,
it's just like I understand wanting to celebrate because your significant other just won a huge game. I understand that, but at the same time, you have to, as someone who is in the limelight, I guess you could say, or has a big following because of where she's at, you have to be aware of what you're doing. Like, you have to be mature enough to be able to look at the crowd and be like, okay, there's a couple different scenarios. I mean, there are hundreds of scenarios that could have happened. I mean, it could be that you look down and there's like a father and a son, or a mother and a daughter, or a mother and son or something. Do you really want to be spraying champagne all over that child? Because I'd be pissed. And two, like, how do you know that there's not like someone down there enjoying the game that is a recovering alcoholic, and now you're going to dump alcohol all over? I'm just saying, like,
there's a lot of dots going here.
Like, there's a lot of things that
they have to get back their token now. They can't.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you have to be aware of, not just, well, why can't I celebrate the way I want? Well, it's not about you.
Yeah, how about I'm not walking home soaking wet because some idiot above me is spraying? You know what? Risk that deposit in the in your luxury suite and spray each other in there. You know,
exactly.
But their antics, I mean, one after another. And she wasn't like this until she really kind of teamed up with his idiot TikToker brother. I mean, it's just. I would have liked.
She's always been. I knew she was crazy when her stepdad died, and she immediately posted an Instagram about it, or like she was like, what a great day that turned into such a sad day, where it was like her on the sideline, like next to the game, like, yeah, and then the very next picture was her holding the hand of her dead stepfather, and it was like, bro, did you just got out of here and you're like, I gotta Instagram this? Like, what?
Yeah, like what Prophet said, like, now you're going into your car smelling like alcohol. Like, what? I mean, obviously you're not going to get in trouble, but still, like, you pull over, like, is that alcohol smell? No, it was the rich chick up in the box.
But also,
we'll get Prophet to get us out of that.
Can we also stop pointing out that the Broncos did not draft Josh Allen and drafted Bradley Chubb instead,
That's
and
the
assume
stupidest thing
that
ever.
we would be getting the same result right now from Josh Allen.
People are like 2020 hindsight means that we would have drafted Josh Allen the way he is now and not how he was as a rookie. Like, that's not how it works. You would have had rookie terrible Josh Allen with Vance Joseph, and if not that, Pat Shermer. Like, do you really want that? Like, it wouldn't have been the same Josh Allen.
I'm just tired of people talking about it at all. Like, it didn't matter who we had. Well, first of all, we had just signed Case Keenum, so we just paid him the money. Second of all, like, Bradley Chubb fell to us and was the best defensive player in that draft. Thirdly, Josh Allen was pretty much the Paxton Lynch of that draft, where he was the third best quarterback potentially, with all the tools, but very raw. So you really think John Elway was looking at that and was like, I'm gonna do it again? You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand how people go back on that. Like, hindsight is 100. It's stupid.
Well, I think schools is like stop teaching
Dak and Paxton, same thing. Yeah. Exactly the same thing.
Schools have stopped teaching history because we just have revisionist history to go back on. I mean, when we got Bradley Chubb, we were all celebrating like we'd just stolen the draft. I mean, Josh Allen, what he's become with Brian Dable, what he's become with Stephon Diggs, now Gabriel Davis with 4 touchdowns. I mean, just ridiculous. So
that's funny.
I mean,
on the tarmac staring at the jet. You shall not pass.
And as someone that lives in New England, you know, anyone that can be some serious competition for the Patriots, I'm all for. So
absolutely. Belichick's probably on his way out, right?
I believe that's Bronco Bill's sister. Now, Bronco Bill and I did have a conversation where he said we needed to get you out of the closet because you are a closet Broncos fan.
I thought she was a Chargers fan.
She's a Chargers fan, but apparently she is a closet Broncos fan. So we need to get her out of the closet. That's what I told Bill I was going to say, is that we need to get her out of the closet.
Real question. Were there Chargers fans before
Are there still Chargers fans?
I've learned they have sprouted
I'm pretty sure
new spring.
I'm pretty sure that once they got Herbert, it went from like 2 to 7. And they're sitting right around 7.
True.
I don't even think it's him. I think it's Mike. I think it's the fancy stadium, like that enamors them. You know, because it's still opposition fans that are pouring into that place. I mean, for the
Rams,
which
was built for the Rams.
How do you? By the way, you heard
the Rams. Yet Matthew Stafford is doing a silent count while Jimmy Garoppolo is silencing the crowd. You know, what's going on here? So.
You heard that they separated by area code the tickets for the NFC Championship game, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's weird how they do that in the first place. First of all, I always thought that was kind of dumb. I wonder how they would do that if like LA and the Rams were playing a game against each other. Like, do you just vet everybody at the door? Just like when you're going through security, or just like, which one are you?
Vet everybody. You got to wear a bracelet.
Yeah.
Wait, you have a terrible towel. Are you from Newport Beach?
Mm-hmm. No, I'm staying in the closet with my boys in blue and gold. You misspelled orange, but that's okay.
He's a Rams fan, apparently.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so the weekend as far as football goes, you had the Bengals beat the Titans, which I was a little surprised. Titans did not play well. The 49ers beat the Packers. That was funny. The Rams beat the Bucks, and obviously the Chiefs beat Buffalo in overtime. So we have a Bengals, Chiefs, and Niners, Rams this weekend.
Yeah, I'm worried.
I'm worried.
And
it seems like it's like 99% of America is like Bengals. I don't want the Chiefs. No.
Yeah.
And because of Jackson and Brittany.
Yeah. But how do you not love Joe Burrow? I mean, that dude, second year, just the coolest guy. You know, if you want to see some fun video, look at him mic'd up with Jamar Chase. You know, they have a long-time relationship from college and now at the pros, and just the busting of the chops. It's just it's amazing. I hope they can beat the Chiefs for a second time this time. At this point, our Broncos pick is absolutely shot as far as the Rams go. We got the end of the second round, end of the third round. Let's go Rams Bengals. How about that?
Well, you also have Burrow coming off of his injury last year, right?
Mhm.
So not only has he shown a pretty high character and class, just the way he's interacting with his teammates, but coming off that injury and being able to play as well as he has this year so quickly, and also plant and push off of that leg as well, like we saw in the last game. It's been remarkable to see him being able to bounce back and play as well as he has.
I don't think it's their year, but I hope it's the year. But I do think next year, because those guys still have like $7 million in cap space coming up.
Yeah.
So like they're like people are gonna like the Bengals are the place to go right now. They're just gonna start loading up. So I'm excited to see where that goes next year for sure.
Paulie on the Dan Patrick show the other day said, if I'm an offensive lineman, I'm calling the Bengals. That's a free agent this year. I'm calling the Bengals GM and saying, get me over there. That would the money is TBA for sure.
People were talking about like Ryan Ramczyk going out of New Orleans because of the Saints conundrum that they're now face deep in. I could see him going there.
The one criticism of Burrow is he couldn't, and I'm surprised Rich has not pointed this out, but his beard is just like substandard.
Not on point.
For somebody his age.
It's like an Isaiah beard.
It's
like a little child's beard.
Well, Isaiah's smart enough to shave this part, because he knows he can't grow it. Joe just lets it go and then throws on the rose sunglasses, which are,
I trimmed my beard the other day and asked my fiance, do you think this is like good like amount for the wedding? Because she likes beards. She's like, you trimmed it? I was like, what do you mean? Of course I trimmed it. And she's like, well, you could clean it up more. So I'm like, what do you mean? Let's clean.
And I would like to point out that the one guy that's making fun of somebody's beard is the only one on the show with no beard.
Yeah,
I know. I was pointing out that
there.
I was pointing out that Marcus needs a haircut. He looked like Bruno Mars or Rick Astley earlier, but
I know the hair has gone wild. I haven't been able to go anywhere since COVID, and I can't get a haircut. So it's just
there you go, Boggins. There's a comment for you. I hope the 49ers intentionally lose this game so we can hire Mike McDaniels OC.
Actually, I'm going to show my age and say that Boggins right there looked like Anthony Michael Hall in Breakfast Club. But...
Oh,
wow!
Pulling out an 80s reference.
I'm not that straight.
Johnny says, "Nice 2-month beard, Joe. It's a 4-year beard."
It was his playoff beard from LSU.
Okay, so Bengals or Chiefs? Which one do you think is going to go to the Super Bowl?
Chiefs. I don't like it, but I think the Chiefs. I don't think like the Bengals' main high point is their offense, and I don't think you're keeping up with the Chiefs. That's it.
Okay.
Bengals.
Ooh.
I'm going wishful thinking and going Bengals. I love this team. I mean, I think Burrow's probably my favorite non-Bronco in the NFL right now.
Yeah, I'm going to go Bengals too. I think that the Bengals defense is a little underrated. I think they'll be able to stick it to the especially if the Chiefs start as slow as they did against the Bills. Like if you give the Bengals that much leeway, and even just in the first quarter, you're not going to catch them.
I mean, the Bills had the number one defense going into the game, so
the
Bills.
The Bills did, yeah. But I actually think the Bengals' strength, which is kind of being understated a little bit, is their offensive line has actually done pretty well with the running of the football. They've been able to move guys off the ball and really wear them down. When you've seen Mixon get going, he's steadily gotten better and better and better and gained more and more yards as the game has gone on. And you saw the KC defense really dwindle when it came to the run game in that game as well that they were playing against the Bills. So, and I think the Bengals have a stronger offensive line than the Bills do.
I think you could classify Cam is right on. I mean, you can classify him
here with the Lord of the Rings.
How can I be any sort of wizard without some gray or white in the beard?
Mike's beard is more Pepe Le Pew.
Plus, I'm pretty sure I'm not the oldest, but I'm not the youngest either. I think Boggins is younger than me.
Yep.
I think.
No comment.
No, I definitely am. What do you mean no comment? Like, of course I am.
No, I didn't.
No, you only got me by like 2 years. You're not that much.
How old are you?
35. 35.
Yeah, that's right. 32.
I'm 39, right, Boggins?
No, you're not.
Favorite non-Bronco from
like
Profit,
40.
Von Miller. That's good. That's a good choice.
Yeah, I was so trying to choose between the Niners and the Rams. I'm torn because like I like the Niners and I want them to go because I like Kyle Shanahan, but at the same time, like you want to see Von Miller make another Super Bowl. So then I'm torn between whether I want to be Rams or whether I want to be Niners for the game.
I think I want Rams because Kevin O'Connell I don't think is really that much of an option for a head coach. I mean, he is, but like I think he's like third on the list. And I want Von to win, and I want Mike McDaniel to be available.
Oh yeah, and EJ says Aaron Donald. Yeah, he should get one too.
That's true.
But also Matthew Stafford, and when you think about and when when the reports were that Stafford cost the Rams just so much to get him, and then the Broncos were asked to throw Drew Lock in, and they didn't do it, and it's like, is this for real? Like, hey Mo, it's I'm hoping that that's not true. That that Drew Lock was not the deal killer for Matthew Stafford, because his throw to Cooper Kupp at the end of that game after they'd blown the lead was just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, another epic game, epic comeback by Tom Brady, and perhaps his last game of his career. I mean, just this Rams, another team that's fun to watch. It's the Rams. I mean,
so we're all basically going Rams over Niners.
Yeah. I mean, the Niners seem to find a way to pull it out every time, and they are very, very familiar with each other, and the 49ers won the last one, but I'm hopeful of the Rams.
So Boggins, what have you thought of Von's performance when he first got traded and then in recent weeks? I mean, what's your thought on that?
I mean, he's playing amazing. I mean, he's adapting. He wasn't quite fully healthy too when he got traded over, so it seems like he's getting a lot more healthy. Seems like he's getting the chemistry with the boys over there, and man, and playoff Von is just another level. Like he turns into something completely different, and it's amazing to watch. I know that people were saying Von was dwindling down, and like his production, it's not like it was as high as it had been in the past, but he was still a very productive pass rusher, still very high numbers in pressures. And the Rams knew what they were getting, but I mean, it would be crazy to think, and Payton would kind of be a king if by chance he becomes available after he wins another Super Bowl, and then he just comes back home. And then pretty much the Rams just paid for a year loan for a second and a third round pick, which would be fantastic.
Well, and a Super Bowl, because he would certainly be a huge contributor to the Super Bowl. I mean,
absolutely, that's what I'm saying. Like, you get a Super Bowl,
and I agree with that 100%.
And then he comes back to us to finish out his career at a discounted price when we have Aaron Rodgers.
Discounted price. Yeah.
I mean, strip sack Von is a thing of beauty. I mean, nobody in the NFL in history has ever.
I was so mad that they just gave that right back up.
I know.
Come on.
Cam,
he's not coming back.
There was a poll, and I won, not Johnny. So stop it.
Well, the poll was. I mean, let's be honest.
I'm more than happy to run another poll, but if I lose, I'm shutting everything down.
Cameron, let's be honest. Like, Mike had all his kids vote, and just their votes alone made him win.
That's 25 votes right there.
That's true.
Like, I'm the poor Phillip Rivers. That's what that is. Now we did have
polo tie.
I think it was Ryan. I think it was. You caught me off guard with that one. I think it was Ryan Edwards on Twitter was talking about whether we would have won more games if we had kept Von and he had played the way he did. And my response to that was, I don't the pass rush that we would have gotten from Vaughn, I don't think would have changed much, because when Vaughn left, it seemed like the defense had a whole different attitude and played different because they were being held accountable or being led by others in the locker room other than Vaughn. So I don't think that the Broncos would have won more with Von Miller on the team. I think they won more because he wasn't. And I'm not trying to insult the guy. Like, I wish he was still with the Broncos, but I think that Vaughn leaving was the change that the defense needed.
We didn't lose games at the end of the year because of the defense. It was an offensive problem, and come draft time or whatever ends up happening with those second and third picks, those assets, if we end up with a trade, if we end up with picks, we're going to be happy with how that deal panned out for sure. Hey, Mark.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been that much different. I mean, our pass rush was terrible, but I don't like our offense was so bad that it wasn't. I really don't think it would have made that much of a difference, especially not for a second and a third round pick. I'll take it.
Second or third round pick.
Right. No, I actually agree with that, but I completely agree with what Mike said. There was a noted energy difference, particularly amongst the younger outside linebackers and in that defensive line group. I do wonder if Vaughn was holding that group to a standard that he plays to, and you hear this a lot actually in the sports world, where guys that are like Vaughn that are just that good, it just comes naturally to them, so they just kind of say, well, just do this. And of course, when they say just do this, for them, they are physically and capable of getting to that level and doing those things, and everyone else is saying, no, I can't just do that. That's not possible.
I think when Vaughn's there, you're just kind of in train mode, right? You're like, you see this guy that is like showing you the ropes. You're learning, and you're like, kind of like metaphor, not metaphor, but kind of like you're looking at him after every play, like that. Well, now there's no one to be like that anymore, too. Right? Now it's like what I've trained you for. Put up or shut up. Right. So now they're out there and actually giving it their all because there's no one else to like look at them.
Right.
So, go ahead.
Sorry, just on the flip side of that, just to speak to that point, though, when Vaughn had DeMarcus Ware here, we already know that there was that kind of, bug-eyed kid from Vaughn, because, I mean, he was just giddy in pressers when he was talking about DeMarcus Ware and the fact that they were playing together. However, the difference is that when D. Ware goes to Vaughn and say, well, you have to do this, even though DeMarcus Ware is that elite player, Vaughn in some respects was more athletic than DeMarcus Ware was, even at the peak of his career. Pardon me?
Some aspects, definitely. Definitely.
Most
Vaughn
aspects.
is pure speed, dude.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, but that's my point, right? So DeMarcus Ware could say, do this, and Vaughn's like, yeah, no problem. So I think that there's just a little bit of that kind of playing off of each other, and the fact that Vaughn had no issues with what was being said, but these other guys are like, I'm sorry, I just can't do it.
So, Rich, when you were talking about Vaughn, and telling these guys what to do, and they're like, we're not capable of doing that. That reminds that the first thing I think of is when people say, Payton should be a coach. He should be a head coach. Right. He could not, no one can live up to his level and his standard. That would never ever work out, and it would be exactly what you described with Vaughn. I mean, I am enjoying watching him with the Rams. Just even his college number, he's having fun. I have no expectation that he's ever going to play in a Bronco uniform again. I think he's going to stay in California. I think he's going to play golf and get a nice fat contract from the Rams. I see that happening, but hopefully he ends up with a Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, and you're also not looking at the things that happened after Vaughn left. Like if Vaughn hadn't left, I don't think we go and get Kenny Young. I mean, we didn't have that.
No, we had him before.
I thought he got traded in after Vaughn left.
No, he was the week before, and that's when the Rams, when they were doing Kenny Young trade, they said, "What about Von Miller?" And that's how they talked. Supposedly, that's the story.
So ignore me. I don't know what I'm talking about.
That's fair. But I do think the difference between like now and with Vaughn and Ware is that you had two Hall of Famers, and we currently don't have that. Like Bradley Chubb is legitimately on the verge of being out the door after next year. I mean, he's a solid pass rusher, but I don't know what you're going to pay for that. Like you're going to at least probably let him hit free agency and then see what that garners out there. But he's definitely playing for for contract extension this coming year for sure.
Well, and that's the part that sucks is like that he's got the talent, he just can't stay healthy.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, but he still hasn't put up anything close to what he did his rookie season. Like his rookie season was amazing with Vaughn, and then he just couldn't stay healthy. It's not he's good. Like I said, like he's good, but he hasn't reached that next level. And we definitely don't have anything on the other side. Like I mean, Weatherly is fine. Malik Reed has been terrible. Jonathan Cooper is young and serviceable, but we need an elite pass rusher.
Yep. So let's spin it for Johnny's question. What do you think are the chances of Brady and Rodgers retiring? I don't think there's any chance that Rodgers retires. I'm actually quite interested. I actually think that Brady might.
Maybe.
I think there's a good shot. No, and especially with the team the way they are now is not going to be the same next year. Like a lot of the players that they have are on 1-year deals, and so they're going to be losing a lot of people that he has. So he might. I mean, this is what the first Super Bowl in the last 30 years that Brady wasn't in. It seems like so he needs to retire and go away.
Yeah, and I haven't really looked into what the roster looks like for next year. I don't know how many. Because Chris Godwin's out the door. I haven't looked at like Mike Evans or whatnot.
Evans is still there.
Yeah, I don't remember if they just paid Vita, but they have a lot of
huge money for
Vita. Yeah, they have a lot of money, or a lot of decisions they're going to have to make pretty soon, and so it's going to be very interesting to see. And I don't know if it's
Brady
worth
retires, Gronk is going to retire too. He already said he's not playing with anybody but Brady.
Absolutely.
So if Brady leaves, Gronk is gone too. So I think that this was the Bucs' last shot with Brady.
I mean, 7 Super Bowls.
Such a failure.
Bye.
You can leave now.
Yeah, can we like put the best of all time debate to rest?
You know what's going to be funny though? If he does that, it's going to just like completely overshadow Ben Roethlisberger. Like Ben Roethlisberger is gone, and people are going to be like, "Oh yeah, Ben Roethlisberger's first off season that
Brady.
Tom Brady, like Brady."
Well, and then it goes from like Ben Roethlisberger being the big speech on Hall of Fame night to Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's also true.
Yeah.
Because if they both retire, that's gonna be rough.
Ben,
No one's even going to talk about Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah.
Do you think Ben is first ballot?
Is Ben first ballot? 2 Super Bowl rings. You can't really. Yeah, I do. I don't think he's like if Eli gets in first ballot, then
I was going to say, do you think Eli is first ballot?
No.
Because
I don't know.
I don't.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I wasn't that big of a. I honestly, with like, if you look at Eli's career, like I mean, you don't just get into the Hall of Fame based on Super Bowls. I don't even know if Eli Manning was really that good.
Well, I think his winning percentage was like, if I remember correctly, he had one more win than loss as a starting quarterback.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mile High Prophet says Albright had the best take on Rodgers retiring. He can't expect to be in the greatest of all time QB conversation when Eli Manning has won more Super Bowls than he has. I guess, but then you got Marino who didn't win any.
Which is like, because if Payton didn't win another one, are you really going to say that people thought that Eli Manning was better? Like, that's
well, it depends on who you're talking to on Twitter.
Favre won one. Yeah.
Favre won one. Is Eli Manning better? No.
So also, they mentioned Albright. Shout out to Ben. This guy is getting like no sleep. I can't even imagine the number of texts. I can't imagine the SMS charges that his phone plan is amassing these last couple of weeks. I mean, just the guy is working a ton, and I mean he is the ultimate Twitter follow for Bronco fans for sure.
Dan Marino didn't have Annie. Is Dan Marino worse than Eli Manning?
Neither did.
And if I remember correctly, Marino went to the Super Bowl in his rookie year and never set foot back.
Neither did Kelly, Jim Kelly. He didn't have it either.
Well, he went 4 years in a row.
Right, but he didn't win any.
Actually, Marino speaks in his interview in the Football Life, and then in a private interview after that when he went in his rookie year, he didn't fully appreciate it in the moment just how difficult that trip was, and then he just assumed that given his skill that he'd likely probably be able to make it back in his career, and then looking back at it now, he kind of regrets his. Not nonchalant attitude, but certainly lack of appreciation of just how difficult it was to make it to where he did.
You know, and I think with that Super Bowl, I believe that it started with a Dolphin kickoff return for a touchdown. So they had it with Fulton Walker. So I think they had an immediate lead right off the bat for Dan Marino, and he didn't close the deal.
The other thing that I think that people are forgetting, or at least Rodgers probably doesn't forget, or doesn't, because he's a very, very keen student of the game, is if he wants to be continuously mentioned since he played in the same era as Tom Brady, he's going to have to go to another team and get at least to a Super Bowl to kind of be continually mentioned in that conversation, kind of playing a little bit off of what Albright was kind of hinting at there, because there's been Peyton Manning that has done it within that same kind of time range, and Tom Brady has done the same thing. So if Rodgers really truly wants to be seen in that same conversation, he needs to then either go to another team and win it, or he needs to go back to Green Bay, finish out his storied career there, and win a Super Bowl, and kind of be the outlier to kind of win 2 Super Bowls and stay with the same team for his whole career. That's, I think, the only way that's going to separate him.
Can you imagine if Rodgers comes to the Broncos, wins a Super Bowl? Our team could conceivably have arguably 3 of the top 5 quarterbacks of all time winning Super Bowl. and if he retires after he wins a Super Bowl, they'd all be walk-off for Super Bowl wins.
We're just going to be the team.
Elway, Payton, and
we're going to be that destination team is what we're going to be.
Yeah.
And Glenn Rodgers mentioned that in his interview with McAfee. McAfee on the McAfee, whatever. McAfee, whatever.
McAfee.
I thought you were trying to say McCaffrey. I was like, what?
No, McCaffrey is wrong team. But McAfee mentioned it with Rodgers on the interview there, where Rodgers said something about not all of us can be as lucky as to have walk-off Super Bowl wins like Payton and Elway. So he clearly is well versed in the in that kind of conversation.
Yeah.
The Denver Bon Voyage.
Real quick before we throw it over to Rodgers and Wilson updates, KB82 says, would you be okay with Javonte and Cordarrelle Patterson? Patterson had 5 rushing touchdowns, 6 receiving touchdowns, and 8 career kick return touchdowns, 4 returns over 100 yards. I would say
that's a long career.
I would say not to replace Melvin Gordon, but if you're bringing him in to replace Spencer, then yes.
He's 30.
Boone, you mean? Yeah. No, that would definitely be a replacement of Gordon. I don't know the possibility, but
I don't like that.
Cordarrelle Patterson has totally reinvented himself with the Falcons. I mean, what a bounce back. I mean, this guy, anyone that plays fantasy football has been either the beneficiary or totally burned by Cordarrelle Patterson this season, because he's just been awesome with the Falcons.
Rich is saying McAfee and Canadian guys, leave him alone. So McAfee is McAfee and Canadian. Mm-hmm. That's what we're going to go with. Okay, so quick Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, kind of not really news, but updates, I guess. Rodgers was on the Pat McAfee show, said that he would not retire, and that you heard me. He would not retire and then come back a year later. So the Carson Palmer situation where he left the Bengals and then went to Raiders, that's not going to happen. He's not going to retire to get out of the contract and then go somewhere else. And he also said that he would make a decision sooner rather than later, and he would do it in Indy on Pat McAfee's show. So I'm hoping that means within the next couple weeks.
Well, who do you guys
try to get out there before the draft?
Do you guys have a preference?
Well, and that's what I was going to say. Russell Wilson has said that he was going to look around at all of his options. So not saying that he will leave, but it's now out there that he's going to look around. So if you had the option, let's say that Rodgers and Wilson were both on the table for Denver. They were interested. They wanted to come to Denver. Who do you take?
Listen,
don't all talk at once.
Well, I'm not going to be disappointed in either one, but just from an age standpoint and so we don't have to think about this in 3 more years, like Russell would be my 1A and Rodgers my 1B. But if either one of them ends up here, I'm going to be, doing cartwheels in the front yard.
Just because I think that Aaron Rodgers gives us a better chance to win a Super Bowl. I would say Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. And I think
why
I don't mind because I think he's better.
Okay. No, I just was curious.
I mean, yeah, no. I don't mind the potential 2-year period because I think at that point you could actually have a conversation with him and draft a quarterback to potentially be behind him and sit and learn for a couple years. But actually let him know about it as you're trying to win him a Super Bowl. And then you could groom maybe a quarterback in this draft to potentially their maximum potential. Like if you got a Malik Willis who has the highest ceiling and he actually sat for 2 years, that could be something to really be excited about. But yeah, I would take Aaron. I get that. I wouldn't be mad about Russ either. I just think that there's more of a chance of failure with Russ, but not we would still be a lot better. Still be a lot better on offense, given that our defense is still equally as good.
So Boggins, you're in Seattle. What are people talking about, or what are the reports coming out of there as far as his future with the team, the Seahawks' future with free agency and coaching and such? What's going on there?
There's a lot of I heard this before, it's not really going to happen, blah blah blah, and stuff like that. And then there's certain people that are just over the whole thing, and then they're just yeah, probably he's going to be out of here, whatever. They're just very not happy, just angry with the whole situation. Didn't look good. We need that. We need to just get out of here. Just let's wash it essentially. But I think they've all kind of taken a little step back since it's been announced that Carroll and Snyder are staying. So now everybody's oh, well, maybe stay because we thought we were gonna get a full rebuild, and now that they're still here, that's not necessarily what's gonna happen. So I don't think they want him gone, but at the same time, they're in denial. I don't know. It's very interesting. I honestly think that he's going to try to get out of there, and I really think the Seahawks are going to try to keep him, but then realize that they're in such a predicament with their roster that they don't know what to do.
So what do you guys think would be the compensation for each? I mean, who gets
hang on a sec, Rich. Which quarterback you got?
I'm literally in the exact same boat as Boggins. I just think Rodgers is just the superior quarterback between the two. And I'm not even I'm going to be a little less diplomatic, and I don't even think it's close. I think Rodgers can make throws that Wilson couldn't dream of making. I think Wilson has other skill sets that are perhaps more pronounced, but I'm not necessarily sure that those are required today.
Welcome back, my friend.
You should have been on last week's show. That was a show for you, buddy.
Shadow, your ears were burning because, man, we were talking about you. But just in my opinion, I think Rodgers is a better quarterback. I also think that we have weapons that are more conducive to his skill sets and his talents more so than Russ. And I also think that Rodgers can elevate some of our receivers that we have just recently paid, much like we saw Peyton Manning do with Demaryius Thomas and Eric Decker when they were here. We saw their games kind of start to get better, but then when Payton came, they really became legit and polished. I think we can start seeing that from Tim Patrick. I think Patrick is at a stage where he can really take that next step, and I think Sutton really needs someone like Rodgers to allow him to take that next step as well.
Now, one of the other things that Rodgers did say is that he does not want to be part of a rebuild.
Nope.
Obviously, Denver is not a rebuild. Is Green Bay at this point going into a rebuild?
Yep.
Essentially. Yeah. They're in trouble.
Big time.
Okay. So,
sorry, you also missed the other comment.
The more you look at it, the more you think that, like, Rodgers is not going to be in Green Bay. Now, I'm not saying that he's coming to Denver. I'm just saying it's looking more realistic that he's not going to go back to Green Bay.
I mean, I don't know where, like, people are talking about the Steelers and stuff, but I Denver seems like the most obvious place. Like, cap room, roster. His fiance lives in Denver or in Boulder. Like, I don't know how.
Who wants to live in Pittsburgh?
Obvious.
Nobody.
Yeah, no one wants to live in Pittsburgh. Sorry, Pittsburgh.
The other thing you guys haven't touched on that you mentioned was number 17.
Oh, geez, half our audience.
17.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Devontae.
Yeah, it was a joke. Ha ha.
Huh.
What about him? I mean, you got to think they're going to franchise tag him, right?
What was actually the funny thing is Rodgers brought that up in the interview, and he said, "And no player wants that ever." And then Pat said, "Of course not." So,
can you imagine if Aaron Rodgers left and they franchise tagged Devontae Adams?
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Well, my fear, and I've said it before, is that Devontae's college quarterback and his good buddy is Derek Carr. I mean, that would be bad for us. But you know, I have Twitter open on the side here.
I don't like that. I don't like that.
What?
Because think about it. All the things we've heard about the Raiders potentially this offseason. You throw Devontae Adams into that, then you throw Harbaugh into that, then you throw Fangio into that. I don't like it.
No,
they're not allowed. They're only allowed one, not three.
Like Devontae is supposed to be, he's supposed to be a great guy. We don't need him going to Vegas and getting in trouble with the law like everybody else says he does. But so I'm seeing a tweet here that said Rex Ryan. If Aaron Rodgers goes to play for the Broncos, he'll be the third best QB in the division. And Ben Albright's response was, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time Rex Ryan had to take a foot out of his mouth.
Yeah, and I think I put a response on that that said, and that is why he's not a head coach anymore.
Oh my God!
His quarterback opinions are the reason why he's not a coach. Mark Sanchez, the Sanchez, woo!
Well, remember he's got the Sanchez tattoo on his.
Yeah.
Well, I just think it's funny that people have.
I mean,
maybe technically, but like we beat the Chargers last year. With who? Like we almost beat the Chiefs last year with who? Like, you don't think Aaron Rodgers puts us over that hump?
No, he definitely
does. Johnny says Green Bay, New Orleans, and Seattle are all on the cusp of a major rebuild, but Johnny said it, so I don't know if I really believe it that much.
But you know what, Johnny? You know what the worst part of that? The worst part of that is that they're all NFC teams. Like when like the AFC is just so stacked right now. We need some of those teams to start.
Well, if we don't get Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, we go into hiding for like 5 years. That's what we do. We go into hiding and build and find our franchise quarterback.
Now I did want to
in 5 years.
I did want to, yeah. So there was a news that came out today that Sean Payton is stepping down from the Saints. He's going to retire. What was it? Was it a full retire or just stepping back?
No, stepping down for 2022. He said.
Okay. But you know what that means, Mike? That means that they're in such financial disarray. He wants no part of the next.
That means that he's coming to Denver. That's what that means.
You guys figured this out. I'm going to come back when you guys figure it out.
So my question is, with Sean Payton leaving and with they're what $75 million in the hole on the salary cap?
It's something like that. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
They're going to be losing some people, right? Like you had mentioned, the right tackle Ryan. What was his name? Ramczyk. Do we see somebody like that coming to Denver? Do we see Denver going after like a Jameis Winston if we can't get like a Rodgers or a Wilson?
I know Cam was talking about Ryan Ramczyk, and I'm more on the Jameis Winston boat as far as like if we don't get like a Rodgers or Russ or whatever. I feel like every QB conversation that we have on Twitter. It starts with if we don't get Rodgers or Russ. But let's just say,
Jameis Winston is an upgrade over what we currently have in the free agent market, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
He's on the wrong 30 under 30 list.
Yeah. That's not different. Anyways, Ryan Ramczyk, I would love at right tackle. However, he is he's the highest paid right tackle in the league at $19 million a year, which is a little high for my blood. I would much rather re-sign Bobby Massey, who played fine, and then draft a young buck to grow underneath that for way cheaper.
Can you imagine if the
Broncos? A minute, buddy.
Stop interrupting, Mike.
I can't. It's Eclipse. When's the last time we saw a comment from him?
Can you imagine how pissed Drew Lock would be if we traded for Jameis Winston, or if we signed Jameis Winston? He'd be like, I thought you people had a problem with interceptions.
That's exactly it.
Cameron Parker says, I said Ramczyk because it's the right decision, Bilbo Boggins. Ooh.
I haven't seen Bilbo since the Bills end zone, but oh wait, that was something different. Sorry.
Okay, so now that we've kind of squashed the Saints talk, obviously, I don't think Payton is coming to the Broncos. That's not going to happen.
Well, Boggins said something about Marcus Lattimore. You think they'd get rid of him? I mean,
you said throw in Lattimore in your tweet.
I said Demario. I'll take Demario Davis. I'll take Marshawn Lattimore. I'll take. Someone was mentioning Cameron Jordan, but again, same thing as the Ramczyk thing. I would much rather, in a really deep edge class, I would much rather just draft an edge. Although he is fantastic.
I feel like Boggins
he's more middle though, right?
Yeah.
Which one? Cam?
But I mean, depends on what we're doing. Are we going to Dan Quinn? Are we going to a 4-3? Because then we're talking edges end is what we have now. So it's depends.
Sure.
So speaking of Quinn, the Broncos
Dr.
are
Quinn,
down
medicine woman?
3. Yes.
Oh, cool.
3 coaching finalists: Dan Quinn, Nathaniel Hackett, and Kevin O'Connell.
53 minutes in.
O'Connell is the one I did not see on that list.
No.
Stop.
I did.
I saw it on the list.
Well, he wasn't the one that I expected to be in the final 3.
Original list.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
he was my
He
pick.
wasn't the one I saw being in the final 3.
From last show.
We don't listen to you.
I know you
don't. We almost didn't have you back just because of that foolish pick, and then you were because you were
he chose O'Connell. He's not coming back on this show. Get him out.
All of a sudden, we're like, oh crap, we gotta.
I mean, we had to have one young X's and O offensive mind on there, right? So I think he is the less odds out of the other two. I think it's like a 45%. I'm not gonna do math. I still think Quinn is probably on top. Hackett seems to be looking real good lately. People are talking about the 9-hour interview or whatever. People, I mean, that's can fly by when you're going out for dinner, showing them around, blah blah blah. That's whatever. I do think his name is getting a lot higher, and it is a lot closer between him and Quinn, though.
Yeah,
I just don't know who he would bring in, coordinators wise, because then you have to go down the Doug Marrone tree, and I'm on that. So
and Green Bay basically said that they're going to try to not lose both Getsy and Hackett.
Yeah. And they said they would hire within. So I'm sure
they would want to move Getsy up to offensive coordinator at Green Bay.
Would make sense.
Well, there's another coach for Green Bay, and his name is escaping me right now, but he would be in the running with Getsy for that offensive coordinator. So it wasn't like Getsy was the surefire choice for sliding right in there.
My thing is and maybe it's the old school way of thinking when hiring coaches, but I've always heard that when you have the person in the building, you don't let them leave. So if Hackett was their guy, they wouldn't have let him leave. So I wonder how close it actually is, and if they're still leaning Quinn, and that's why they're waiting to second interview Quinn before they decide. Because if Hackett was their guy, they wouldn't have let him leave, right?
Not necessarily. I think.
It's kind of the same thing. Where it's if they interview Quinn and then they wait a week or 2 weeks.
We're back to the patient Payton. Remember the nickname, Patient Payton. He is very thorough. He is interviewing everybody. He is not going to rush to any decisions. He I don't know if he necessarily knows who he wants. He might probably has an inkling who he wants, but I don't think he is just like
the other thing that you guys might be. The other thing that's not being spoken about is this whole like committee thing, which I personally hate. And so, for example, the committee, like the John Elway and the Joe Ellis that are on the search committee that apparently Payton has to bring the candidate to.
No.
Well, it's not a has to.
No, I don't think neither one of them is on there.
But at the same time, like, tell me who in that building is going to tell them no.
First of all,
Right.
First of all, they're technically in still in their positions, right?
Yeah,
so of course they're going to be part of the process. Second of all, they were in the interviews as like the tail end available via Zoom for any questions they had about ownership. Like that's it. Yeah. Like this is Payton's game. Like they're foot out the door. If Payton has any questions, of course they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I used to do this." Blah 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 blah. Whatever. They're not in this anymore. They're over it.
Let's just say that we don't necessarily agree that Elway has a foot out the door just because he's already admitted that he wants to still be involved, and he's said that publicly in multiple interviews. But my point being is, if Elway and Ellis are involved in these, I do wonder if the reason why you're seeing Hackett being brought in first and or Quinn not being brought in immediately thereafter or just ordering there is if there may be a disagreement. Perhaps Payton likes the concept and idea of what he's seeing in the league of an offensive-minded head coach and likes Hackett, likes what he brings to the table and wants to keep that consistency. And perhaps given our history, we might have the older guys in the room who are saying, no, we like to have that defensive identity kind of remain strong for the Denver Broncos, and therefore may prefer Quinn being kind of like the leader of men and the kind of older guy in the room. So that's what I wonder, if there may just be a difference of opinion, and that's why you saw Hackett come in first for such a lengthy interview.
You know how you know that they're not involved is because Vance Joseph, how quickly was he hired? Very quickly. How quickly was Vic Fangio hired? Very quickly. Yeah. This is taking longer than any coaching process we've had so far because Payton is being very, very thorough in his coaching process.
What about what about the idea that Quinn is being interviewed by essentially every team that has a coaching vacancy, aside from the Jaguars that he turned down? And so maybe his schedule is not as freed up as Hackett, perhaps, and that's simply the reason why he's not. I don't know if that's the case, but the day Hackett was there, Quinn was with the New York Giants. Jeff Bryan, who jumps on the pod every once in a while, he lives up in Maine, and he messaged me the other day and said that Ellis has already bought a place in Kennebunkport. So he's fully planning on like beating feet and heading to the north.
Well, it's like you got to think that Ellis and Elway's involvement this offseason in the coaching search is about the same as they had during the season. I mean, Ellis basically handled the business side of it. Elway didn't really. I mean, he was there for advice, but when it came down to like any small transaction or big transaction or anything that happened involving the team, it was George Payton. So you got to think it's the same thing in the offseason. Like Elway is there for advice if Payton needs any advice or asks for some, and Ellis is there for like the business side of it up until he leaves in March. But other than that, it's Payton's baby. Like it's his to run with.
Elway is involved via wants to be involved via like the ownership. Like when he's a part of a group, like essentially where he's sitting back, just raking in money and then having input, being the former, head of football operations. Like he's done. Like it's he just wants to kick back and own things.
Doesn't it feel like Elway just kind of shows up whenever he wants to? He's not there every day. He's
busy golfing.
So exactly. I mean, he's at Cherry Hills. Like just. He's not committed to the entire team like you would need to be if you were fully in charge. So right. It's Payton's decision. It's Payton's. Joe Ellis has made that clear. It's Payton's fully, his decision and his decision alone. He's smart enough to, excuse me. He's smart enough to turn over every rock and talk to smart people and have them part of the process. But he's going to make this decision. And so far, I'm happy with the decisions he's made with in his year with the Broncos.
Yeah. I think. Well, I thought something. The question that I had was, knowing that Quinn and Hackett have interviews at other teams, do you think if Payton waits to interview O'Connell, that O'Connell is actually the front runner over Quinn and Hackett? Because, I mean, at that point, you're basically giving them the opportunity to select another job at another team.
Yeah, I actually think it would say quite a bit. If he actually waits until O'Connell's actually available, it would kind of, I think it would kind of, show his hand a bit that he is actually more invested in O'Connell than people would think, and that he's willing to let essentially Hackett and Quinn walk, because I don't think he's not gonna hold these other candidates hostage essentially for a week and a half or whatever he would have to wait. So I think it would definitely show his hand if they announce that he's going to wait for O'Connell to make a second interview, and especially in person, that's going to be a game changer, I think.
I totally agree, because these other candidates are going to be like, well, we're obviously not important enough. Let's look at some of these other offers that are coming that way, because they are going to be getting offers from other teams. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, at that point there, Quinn and Hackett would say, I am now B and C. There's no way that I was A at that point, for sure. Now, that would certainly make my prediction looking rather good. Nonetheless, I do think that O'Connell and Hackett bring some interesting things to the table, simply because both of them have kind of grown up with a bit of a Manning experience, where they both come from coaching families and coaching backgrounds. So they've been able to absorb kind of what that looks like, and they know what the expectations are. Their families would have already been kind of coached and coerced into knowing what is required of a coach at the NFL level. And they just know the nuances of the game just naturally as a result of their upbringing. So I think that both Hackett and O'Connell are far more interesting than I think that a lot of people initially gave them credit for.
Now, we've basically said the entire offseason that Quinn was basically the front runner. Is he still? Or do you think it's Hackett, or do you think it's O'Connell?
I think I maintain kind of what I said earlier. I think the older contingent within the building wants Quinn, and I think that Payton probably wants one of the other two guys. And I think that there's a differing of opinion. That's just my opinion for what it's worth.
I don't know. Quinn has the best, or Payton has the best relationship with Quinn already.
Right.
And so I think that is kind of the same, and that anytime you be able to interview someone that you already know, that puts them, they got a leg up in the competition. But obviously these other guys are impressing, and he just wants to be sure about things. But I still think Quinn is the leader in the pack, and I like the potentials for connections as far as OCs and whatnot and leadership with him. But it's close. I think Hackett is definitely the underdog, but he may pull it out.
So when do you guys think that the quarterback situation will be settled?
When's the draft? April 27th?
But Stafford got traded in January. Bear in mind that. So
yeah, but I think we have a lot that we have to figure out. These other teams have to decide that they're going to get rid of either Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, and your highest amount of leverage. Your highest amount of leverage is right before the draft. So I think it'll be right before the draft.
I don't think it'll be that soon, because I don't believe that Wilson and Rodgers would waive their trade clause until after we've selected a coach, so they know who they'd be coming to. So coach first.
Rodgers doesn't have a trade clause.
Yeah. I thought he still did.
No trade clause. No, Rodgers doesn't have a no trade clause. Okay. Russ has a no trade clause.
Russ does, yeah.
But it's kind of complicated, because I still think that Aaron Rodgers still has the leverage to be able to pretty much enact, and apparently has a good relationship now with the GM enough to maybe
Gunst.
be able to sway, like, hey, I would really like to go to this team. Let's try to make a good deal with this team, kind of thing.
He used the term friendship. Did you hear him say that? Like,
Yes,
I mean,
our friendship is growing. Like, wait a minute.
I could also see him just like trolling people, like you guys thought this whole time, and then like I'm just gonna throw out the word friendship, and then Gunst is like probably listening, like, oh, I did good. Okay, good. Yeah.
Well,
Cam says gun to head. It happens near mid to end of February.
Listen,
That's
that's not necessary.
February. Like, why February?
Well, I think it's February because the extended season this year kind of pushes everything back further. So I think that what we've been traditionally used to is the Super Bowl kind of ends in that early first week there. But I think what happens now is that because things are pushed back a little further, I think the decision-making process will also be pushed back further. And I mean, that was by design by the NFL. I mean, they extended the season to where it is now, A, for more revenue, but B, because it makes the off-season flow a little bit more seamlessly into the draft, right? You have a little less of a gap between the Super Bowl and the draft and then the off-season process. So I think what we're going to start seeing is probably shortly after the Super Bowl, all of these teams will start making a lot of their big-time decisions in terms of which players they're keeping and which they're getting rid of, and they'll make them a little bit more public. And then the teams that are still in the playoffs now will then have opportunities to try and pull those players away.
No, I did want to bring this up because Christopher Earl Ashley says draft day will be fixed. Now, if you're banking on drafting a quarterback and having that quarterback start his rookie year, you're looking at the wrong draft class. I don't think that there is a guaranteed starter out of any rookie quarterback this year. There might be one that has to, but none of them should be.
Yeah, I think you're probably looking at Kenny Pickett as the most likely to potentially start or the most ready to start. I'm not going to say he's the only one that's going to start because there's going to be teams and circumstances that that's just how it's going to go. But yeah, Kenny Pickett, maybe Sam Howell. Sam Howell is still a big reach for me.
Cam says free agents also starts in March, so that's why February.
For me, Willis and Strong are the ones that I'm most interested in. I know Strong's got some injury concerns, but and Willis is raw, but those two are the ones I'm most excited about.
Yeah. Cam says free agent starts in March, so that's why he's saying February.
Yeah, but there are no like free agent quarterbacks. So, like, I don't think they would be that worried about it, and I don't think. I mean, I get.
Well, like, but at that point in time, like if you don't know whether you're going to get Rodgers or Wilson, you almost have to take a swing on a free agent quarterback.
Oh, you're talking about like I thought you meant. We thought we were talking in the perspective from Green Bay.
No, like the quarterback question. Like when would we know whether we would be able to get Rodgers or Wilson?
But also, if we're shopping in free agency, none of those guys we're going to be paying for are going to be like any crazy contract. So, I mean, you could still snag someone from free agency and be like, "Oh, Rodgers is available. See you later." You know what I mean? Like, it's not gonna...
Okay, so then the question.
Rodgers said in that interview though that he wanted to make a decision pretty much
sooner rather than later
in that same type of time frame, right? Because he said that my team or the Packers, I need to be mindful of the fact that they need to make decisions as well. And he also said that he basically all but said, but free agency in the draft. So it sounds like he's wanting to make his own decisions kind of in that same time frame, in that kind of mid-February to early March type of time frame. So I think that all fits.
Yeah, maybe.
Christopher says 2 years from now, not that one. 2 years from now, QB starter in this draft. Okay, but who's going to be the quarterback for the next 2 years? And I swear, if you say lock, I will boot you.
No, I think Christopher's talking about it just in general in the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boggins, who do you think?
Who's the what?
Who do you think? What quarterback is going to be starting from this draft? Will be starting in the NFL in 2 years.
In 2 years,
Strong would be one.
Oh, what a question. It really,
it's
really
almost
depends
like
on.
It's almost like
depends
all
on
the main
landing
four,
spot.
right?
Like, I think landing spot is the biggest thing for a lot of these guys, and who's willing to actually invest in the quarterback and who's like to sit. Like I said before, I think Malik Willis has the highest potential to be something in this league. He's like a little bit lesser Lamar Jackson with as far as like running ability. He's shorter, stocky, big arm. So I would, if you had a quarterback you were comfortable with for the next 2 years on your roster, I think he would be the best like swing, because out of all these quarterbacks, I like him the best like ceiling wise, and I just like don't see the value as much in the other ones unless you're going to get him in the second round. The other ones.
Now, do you think a team's willing to change their offensive scheme to fit a Malik Willis in the short term?
Because that's what I said. It depends on where you land. Like
right, exactly. Because sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say like Josh Allen, they adjusted. Lamar Jackson, they adjusted. Like I think that a good offensive coordinator will adjust to their quarterback. Yeah,
not Shermer.
Does Shermer ever get another job as offensive coordinator in the NFL?
Not to start off with.
Desperation is a fun thing in the NFL.
No, I am seeing this debate in the chat I'm seeing this debate in the chat on whether an offensive-minded or defensive-minded head coach really makes a difference.
I was having a big conversation with Zach Seegers today about this, and I can see it both ways. I don't necessarily think so. His view on it was that if you get an offensive coordinator, offensive-minded coach, he values the offensive play a lot higher than other things. And he's saying that if you do get a franchise quarterback, you have that pairing for essentially a decade or more, right?
Right.
But if you have a defensive coordinator or defensive-minded head coach, you're going to have to rotate out that offensive mind if he's successful. Sorry, I get caught.
Well, I was going to say, like take the Broncos in 2015, right? Offensive-minded head coach, we won with defense. So I don't really know whether one pointing to the other is really going to matter. I mean, you want that guy, ideally, that can do both. Which, again, that was our big complaint with Fangio, was he was focusing on the defense and ignoring the offense. And what happened? Like, the offense is the reason why we suck so bad. So I don't necessarily know if you want to do the same thing but the opposite. Like, you want, instead of hiring, I think instead of being upset that we hired two defensive minded coaches in Joseph and Fangio, and that's the reason why we failed. You have to look at it as, well, that was Joseph's and Fangio's first time as head coaches, and that's why we failed. So stop looking at it from a offensive and defensive side and look at it as more of a experience side. Like, who has the experience to be able to go in there and know what they're doing?
I just think you have cases on both sides. So, like, I mean, look at the last two Super Bowls we were in. You had John Fox, who was defensive minded. Well, we went there because of our offense. You look at Gary Kubiak, who was an offensive mind. Well, we won because of our defense.
Yep.
I mean, you have Bill Belichick, who is defensive minded, but he has garnered a Josh McDaniels, who has stayed around, and also a Tom Brady, who stayed around.
Those are both rare, though, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The Patriots, so with the Patriots, that's rare.
No, absolutely. So, yeah. But you also have a Dan Quinn, who's able to be successful and kept finding offensive-minded coaches that were somewhat successful. So it's like you either find a head coach. I believe you find a head coach that has his hand in everything, so it doesn't really matter if he's defensive or offensive-minded, because he finds the right staff to surround himself within consistently. However, if you have a franchise quarterback and you have a successful offensive-minded head coach, I would be very inclined to go with that if you have both of those together, because you, like, as far as sustainability and the way the NFL is moving, you're going more to an offensive-minded NFL, essentially.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of like with Vrabel, right? Like Vrabel's the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, but they're not winning games because of their defense. They're winning because of their offense. So I don't. I mean, their defense is okay. It's not that,
yeah. No, I get it. Derrick Henry, yeah.
Well, yeah, but they won most of their games without Derrick Henry. Like that's the thing. Like, obviously Derrick Henry helps, but I mean, a lot of the games that they won this year was when Derrick Henry was on injured reserve. He wasn't there, so they're winning because of their offense, not their defense. So I don't necessarily know if it matters whether it's offensive or defensive. You just need the right guy or girl or whatever.
Tennessee lost this weekend because of their quarterback, so that was definitely an offensive.
Yep.
I think you could also look at the Rams model a little bit as well and say they have had a tremendous amount of success with a very, very well-versed offensive-minded young head coach, and they have been able to have a quarterback that is not seen as a particularly great quarterback in the league and get into a Super Bowl with Jared Goff. And then they've immediately jumped off of Jared Goff to Matt Stafford, and they haven't skipped a beat. If anything, they look better offensively than they did with Jared Goff as a result of upgrading the quarterback position. And that's in large part with that. I think what Boggins was getting at, and I'm kind of in that same boat, which is, you have that continuity on the offensive side of the ball. So then all you need to really do is put good offensive-minded young coaches or even, the right guy in the offensive coordinator position, but you at least keep some continuity in the vision of the team from the young offensive-minded head coach, given that the league is moving offensively anyway. And then it's just a matter of getting the right DC in place to take care of the defensive side of the ball as long as it fits in lockstep with the offensive-minded head coach. And this is kind of where I pull from you, Mike, a little bit in what you said, which is, hey, does your young offensive-minded head coach, can they be the CEO more of the team rather than kind of what you were complaining about with Fangio, which is to say, I'm going to focus on the offense. Hey, Wade Phillips, the old dude in the room, you focus on the defense. Sean McVay clearly was not that guy.
Right. And also, if your offense is thriving under a certain coordinator, and if that coordinator leaves, you can always just pull up the one who had been working with him the whole time beneath him to hopefully to continue to incorporate that offense.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, that's why, and I'd had the conversation with Bronco Bill because he basically asked me the same question. And it was like, the only reason why I'm skeptical on Hackett or O'Connell is just because I don't know what they're going to be like as a head coach. I don't know if they're going to be good at picking coordinators. I don't know if they're going to be good at evaluating players. I don't know if they're going to be good at organizing everything and keeping everything managed the way a head coach needs to do. Whereas with Dan Quinn, I know what we're going to get. Yeah. And so am I saying that Dan Quinn is the perfect fit for the Broncos? No, but the reason why I'm picking him is because I know what we're going to get. I know that he can be a good head coach, and it doesn't matter if he's defensive or offensive because I know he's going to pick the right coordinators to put in those spots.
Can I play devil's advocate a little bit there?
No.
He had Matt Ryan as a stable franchise quarterback when he was in Atlanta. So do you believe that may have played a role in Quinn's stability at the head coach position? And if you do, how do you think he would be in a position that he's potentially, I'm not saying he's going to, that he's potentially coming into here in Denver, where that quarterback position is largely in flux, assuming, sorry, Boggins, we don't get Rodgers or Wilson.
It's kind of like you kind of got to go with what Albright said, though. Like Albright had said, you look at Atlanta, they had Matt Ryan, but they also had 3 different offensive coordinators that ran 3 different schemes. And so, we know, having gone through the whole Drew Lock thing, that an offensive coordinator, a quarterback's coach, and a scheme is important for continuity for a quarterback. So if you've got 3 offensive coordinators with 3 different schemes that were on the team with the same quarterback and still had that amount of success, then I don't think it matters as long as you have the right coordinator there.
I just think you're overcomplicating things. If you're asking if an organization who's like the face of whatever is going to be the head coach, right? If they're going to struggle when they don't have a franchise quarterback, yes.
Yeah.
Simple as that. If you don't have a franchise quarterback, Are you going to struggle? Probably.
Well, and take the
what did
Patriots last year.
Well, what did we say if
You lost Brady and had Newton? Woohoo! That was a success.
Well, what if we had Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson to start this season? The talk was that Vic could be in the head coach of the coach of the year voting and not looking for his next job. I mean, it's all boils down to quarterback, and that's why it's just so crucial these next few weeks what happens.
I mean, you get the anomalies, right? The Kyle Shanahan, the Sean McVays that can hide it as far as the quarterback position, because they scheme so well that they can kind of like just have a distributor back there essentially. But I mean, those don't come along every, once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how they talk about Goff like he's just like absolute garbage, like a third round pick? He was the number one pick in the draft this year. It's the guy truly does not get any sort of respect at all.
He doesn't elevate the team, though, right? That's the difference.
Is there really even that big of a difference between like the talent level of Goff and say a Mayfield? Like, I don't see that much difference. I mean, Goff isn't a bad quarterback. Baker's not a bad quarterback, but if you put the team on each one of their backs, I think they both crumble.
Right, but that's the point, though, right? Is like the true legitimate franchise quarterback, like an Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning, in that tier of quarterback, they elevate a team, or at the very least, they basically, when they're gone, their team looks like garbage, right? So that's like, that is the difference maker. If Goff were to go down with a guy, and I completely agree with what Boggin said earlier, with a guy like McVay or even Shanahan in San Francisco, you're not going to see a major drop off regardless who's at the quarterback position. You're just not. You're going to see a drop just because there's a natural talent level drop off between the two, but it's only going to be kind of that half step. Whereas when you're dealing with a true franchise quarterback, there's that full step or step and a half down where you're saying, we need that guy back. How fast can they get back? That sort of thing.
Well, look at the games this weekend, right? I'm sorry. The games this weekend. Allen versus Mahomes, right? Brady versus Stafford. And then you got Burrow, who's up and comer, but he's against Tannehill. Three interceptions later, they're bounced out as a number one seed. And then you got Aaron Rodgers, one of the top quarterbacks of all time. Jimmy Garoppolo, 106 yards passing. They won based on special teams being. I mean, Tom McMahon even was talking about how Green Bay special teams suck. I mean, like they were that bad. The common denominator in the success of these games was top tier quarterbacks, and that's what we're missing. And that's this team is just begging for that. This talent is just. I mean, I can't. I mean, I just dream of like either Rodgers, with his 4 interceptions a year and his 40 touchdowns, or your Russell Wilson dropping these bombs into the arms of like Jerry Jeudy running down the sideline. I mean, just it could be magical. It really could.
And with that, I think we're going to end it. We're at almost an hour and a half. This one was long. It was fun. So make sure you are liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing, turn on notifications so you can catch all of our content when it is posted. And like Johnny said, if you have not already liked the videos, hit that thumbs up there because that definitely helps with YouTube's algorithm. Make sure you're tuning into our other podcast, which is the Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue podcast that airs every Thursday at 7654 on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. And make sure that you are tuning in and paying attention to your news feeds when we get the Broncos Breakdown with Bronco Bill posted on the network every Wednesday. And then after the Super Bowl, we're going to start the rough draft where we break down potential draft picks and free agents potentially coming to the Broncos. So make sure you are checking out your feeds for that. And with that, we're going to do what everyone loves to do, especially Boggins. It's his favorite thing to do of all time. Started by our good buddy, Johnny Baki, I think. I'm going to assume somebody else started it and he just stole it, but we're going to do it anyways. So, arms out to your side, and we say, my high five! How dare you switch it to that?
Look in the background, though.
Right? You know what? I'm just gonna.